Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Amy with Life Redesigned, where we grow through what we go through. Hey, really excited to come and talk with you tonight about duplication. As you all know, I talked last week a lot about systems and having that system driven business and what it means and how it can help you. I did another training on that just this week. And I'm super passionate about all of this, about automation, about systems, and about duplication because it all really rolls in together. So today we're going to jump into like kind of adding on to what we've already done and talking about how duplication can actually scale your business, give you more free time, and make you more money. Okay, so let's dive in per usual. Let's get going. Let's get started. Let's talk about what duplication is and just what it means. So duplication is exactly what we're thinking. We think of duplication and we think of things like another or more or the same thing or right the same job. So duplication means just that same thing in business. So it's doing something more than once, doing the same thing more than once. It also can mean like two people doing the same thing in business. Also kind of envision yourself being duplicated when it comes to business. Okay, so in business, duplication is important because I want to duplicate my efforts, my systems, my passion, my strengths, my power, all of that, so that there are more of me in that business. So if you are in business right now, you are the most passionate, you know your business the best, you know the ins and outs because you created it. Yeah. So if we duplicate that, how much further ahead could we be and what could we create with that? Okay. So the reason we want to do this is kind of think about like the reason you back up your computer. You back up your computer so you have like more than one of something, right? So like I'm going to back up all of my files so that if something happens to my computer, I've got a backup in the cloud and I can pull it from somewhere else. So I have more than one. So in case something doesn't, happen here, I've got that backup plan, and that's why I'm duplicating. So think about that when it comes to business is you're doing the same thing. You're duplicating so that you have another copy. You're duplicating so that your efforts are multiplied. You're duplicating so that you can do what you're doing over here, over there. Does that make sense? So also thinking about when it comes to business, duplication, systems, automation, all of that, right? When you are a business owner and you start your business, you create your business. Yeah. You create the system behind that. You create the wheel on how everything works. This week and last week, we talked about like how to structure those systems and how to create a strong system. We also talked about how to automate certain things to be able to get yourself out of the way and use your time more wisely somewhere else. So within all of that, then comes duplication. And rather than inventing the wheel on something, we allow all of that to work in our power. So we allow the invention of our business. We allow our ideas of our systems, our ideas of our processes, our ideas of our automation. We allow all of that to stick. So rather than reinventing the wheel, we duplicate. Yeah. Duplication allows you I should say it allows you to design the wheel one time and then perfect it over and over and over and over. When I talk about business systems, I often talk about, evaluation processes, documentation, that kind of thing. We're not taking it to that level when it comes to duplication. We're doing that within our duplication process. So rather than, okay, I created this process and now I'm going to create this one, I'm actually going to create this process and I'm going to duplicate it, and that means I can do a lot of things with that. If you have two of something, just imagine, we all have those moments where it's like, oh, I wish there was two of me, whether it's with your kids or in business or to be at two separate networking events or whatever it might be. Yeah. So think of it that way. If you had two of you, what could you accomplish? If you had two of your businesses, what could happen? If you had two of those processes that were exactly the same, how much faster Could you scale? Okay. So let's think about some things that could happen and how duplication can work in our favor, what it could do for us as business owners. The first thing is we won't have any wasted resources. When you duplicate, you are replicating. Think of that replication, and you have no waste. Okay. So when you create your systems, I want you to go through, and like I said, we talked about evaluating that. It's like cutting out the fat. You cut out the fat, you slim it down, you perfect it, you finalize it. The last process is that you duplicate that. So when you duplicate, you're not working at cutting the fat anymore. You're not working at perfecting the system. You haven't pivoted, anything like that. You are just simply duplicating. Okay. You are duplicating what you've already perfected. So that allows you to not have any wasted resources and to have a system and a process and a duplication that works just as good as the first one. Okay. The second one is it allows you to have flawless processes. So, just as I was talking about, we've already gone through all those business steps, we've gone through that automation. When we duplicate, we already know that it works, right? We already know that that process works. So, when we duplicate it, it's going to work. So we don't have to go through and evaluate, right? We only have to do that once, and we do it once, we perfect it, we duplicate it, and that process is already working. So if I am running a business, if you are running a business right now and you want to open up a second location, duplication is your word that I want you to focus on. Duplication is what you need in order to open up a second location. And you go, I know, Amy, but I can't be in two places at one time. I know. That's why we have to duplicate you. Now, sometimes duplication means that if you are in one location, the process, the process is you involved, and at another location, it's somebody else involved. But if you have the process and the process works, you take the process. It's kind of like imagine imagine taking if I take this book, right? And I take this book and then I bring it to my friend's house. It's the same thing. So I want you to imagine that in business, that's what you would be doing. You'd be doing the same thing. You're doing a process at one location and then that same process at another location, and it already works. It's flawless already. The third thing is it increases your value, right? So because we don't have any wasted resources, we don't have any extra staff working, we don't have anything, we don't have any extra time going into this duplication. We don't have anything. It's just boom, it's already there. So duplication, making another, it takes a very short amount of time, if at all any. It's just implemented. We go straight to the action step of getting that done, which leads us to, like I was saying, being able to have multiple locations. If you have a successful location over here that has process A, process B, process C, and you want to open up a second location, you've got to know that these processes work. You've got to know what your revenue is. You've got to know how much money you're making on each of them. You've got to know how much time, money, and energy is involved in each of them, and they've got to be perfected. Once you know that you are making money on each of these processes and they can be ran without you, essentially without you, that means that you can go take another location, you can take these processes and you can duplicate them, okay? Because you don't have to be there. Or you're there to oversee it, right? You're over there to see the implementation of that duplication and make sure that everything kind of like gets dumped and relayed flawlessly. Okay. And then that brings me to my last part of duplication and why it's so important. It allows us to scale. It allows us to create more income. We are going to make more income if we have two locations than if we have one. So if we have one location and we are duplicating our efforts of everything that works there and we are making money and we dump that into another location, we are going to make more money. If we are not making money and our processes are not working and we duplicate that, we are going to double, right? We are going to multiply, we are going to duplicate, not making more money, making less money and losing that money, right? And losing all those efforts. So again, it all comes like kind of working your way backwards is like seeing the big picture. If you're in business right now and you are looking to have another location, or you're looking to hire a manager, or you're looking to step away so that you can have a little bit more time, right? Maybe you want to take on another business adventure, whatever that might look like. Somehow, some way, you've got to be there. You've got to be able to duplicate that. So, looking at how to do that within your processes, kind of like imagine starting from the back and heading to the front. So, if you want to duplicate, we're then going to go back to the processes, which is involved in our systems, which also boils down to some automation, which then is creating a business system, yeah, and then all the way back to you're opening a business. So whatever kind of business you're running, again, if you're duplicating your efforts, it doesn't matter what kind of business you're running, because this can apply to a small business. It can apply to those of you that have a couple employees. It could apply to those of you that you're the only employee, and it could apply to businesses like mine where I have 25 employees. Okay, so regardless of that, we want to create those processes and that duplication. Now, the same way, okay, here's a couple things that we want to think about when we duplicate. The same way that we go through our systems and evaluate our systems, we need to keep our eyes on when we duplicate efforts and when we duplicate, okay? So this is what I mean. When you are going through duplication process, now, because this is not like right, like we're not like making a physical copy and sending, giving it to somebody. We're duplicating a process. We're duplicating efforts. We're duplicating a system, right? We're duplicating all of those things. So what we can't do is just dump it in and expect that nothing is ever going to happen. Okay. Now, so kind of looking at two locations are going to be different. The building is different. The view is different. The people that are going in there are different. You're going to have different things to adjust to. So while the process is duplicated, when we duplicate it and when we dump it into that second location, when we duplicate ourselves and we dump our responsibilities into a manager, we have to make sure that we stick around for at least 60 days to watch and make sure that the duplication process is implemented effectively and like to the T, effectively and perfectly. Okay. So we guide the duplication, we implement the duplication, we guide the duplication, and then we make sure that everything is perfect before we fully take our hands completely off that process. Okay. So the only way duplication works, again, are you kind of like seeing how this all matches up? The only way duplication works is if you have a systems driven business. If you don't have systems in place, you are not going to be able to duplicate. There's nothing to duplicate. You can't duplicate your efforts by saying, work hard, let's sign up people, recruit people to buy this product, go teach a class. You're not going to be able to duplicate. You have to have strategic systems in place, systems and processes in place, so that you have something tangible to duplicate. Yes? Okay. So that is the thing. And within that, as you guys all know that I talk about so much, is you have to be willing to delegate. You have to be willing to delegate. You have to be willing to automate, and you have to be willing to elevate. So let's take a look at those three things. You have to be willing to delegate. Who am I going to delegate this duplication to? If I'm duplicating myself, I can't actually duplicate myself. What I'm duplicating is my work ethic, my efforts, my system within my systems and processes, right? So I'm duplicating all of that within that. So when I duplicate that, I have to delegate this to somebody else, because I can't do the process over here and also be in the process over here. Does that make sense? If I want to open 3 locations, I'm going to delegate to 2 different people to run my space, to run my studios. Does that make sense? So you are going to have to delegate. So if you are in a situation where you're like, I'm never going to delegate, I'm just going to keep running my business, I'm never going to delegate ever, this is not going to work. Duplication is not going to work for you. If you are never going to delegate, You're not going to scale, and you're not going to grow, and you're not going to be able to open up another location. You're going to have to delegate certain things within the systems and processes that you have. You're also going to have to automate. You're not going to be able to do everything. We talked about automation last week too. You're not going to be able to do everything, be everything, everywhere, every single second. Automation is going to have to come into play. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through marketing and stuff next week. You're also going to have to elevate. So elevate means, what are we doing to elevate these people that we have delegated? How are we supporting them? How are we elevating this duplication process and system to take it to that next level? This is going to allow you to scale. Duplication is what allows you to scale. Duplicating your hiring process, boom, scaling. Duplicating your training process, boom, you scale. You can train 2 people at the same time you can do 1. Light hand, or many hands make light work, right? Think of that saying. So if you duplicate, you have multiple things of the same thing going on at the same time. If that thing makes you money, you have multiple money streams coming in at the same time. Okay. So again, if you're wanting to scale, you're going to need to make sure that you're going to duplicate. Duplication is such an important way for you to dominate in business. It's also a way for you to really, really, really stand out from your competitors. Okay. Those of you that have been following all of the, us talking about systems and automation and delegation and now duplication, if you are implementing these in your business, you are on your way to scaling, if not scaling already. The way to get there is through these steps, is through these processes. You're already creating business processes and business systems without even realizing that that's what you're creating. Okay. So again, just kind of recapping on that duplication process. If duplication is your end game, meaning if you want to make more money, if you want to have or create more time, if you want to scale your business to another location or just scale it in general, duplication has got to be your jam. In order to duplicate, we have to have strategic systems in place. In order to have systems in place, we need to have a process within the system that works so that we can duplicate it, because we don't want to duplicate anything that doesn't work. And within all of that realm of what we're doing, we want to fill in automation to fill in the gaps within the duplication and successful systems and processes that we have. So do you kind of see how this all ties in together? So this is how you dominate. There's nothing like stepping into a business that has multiple locations and going in and feeling the feel that it's the same. There's like when you go into a McDonald's has duplicated. Okay, they don't necessarily, they've got 2 pickles, 1 squirt of ketchup, 1 squirt of mustard, a bun. They wrap it a certain way, and then boom, they've duplicated that. So for the most part, when you walk into a McDonald's, they wrap the same way. Everybody puts 2 pickles, 1 squirt of ketchup, 1 squirt of mustard, and that's how it's done. Their bags look the same, right? So they have mastered that duplication process. That's branding. It also comes with branding. So the more duplicatable you can be, the stronger your brand, the more recognizable to the eyes and to the ears, and the strength of your business versus your competitors, the more likely the customer is going to remember you, notice you, hear about you, the more they're going to see you, and the more they're going to purchase you and choose you over competitors. Does that make sense? Because guess what happens? This duplication process becomes familiar. Yeah. You become familiar when your brand goes. You become familiar when you scale. You become familiar when things work, which increases because of that increased value. Boom, you're skyrocketing. Does that make sense? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to list in the comments. I want you to list one way that you are going to duplicate or work towards duplicating or within that duplication word, list one thing. If you're listening to the podcast right now, I want you to share with me and tag me on social media, Life Redesigned, the Amy Osteen. Tag me and tell me one thing that you're going to do to work on duplication before the end of the year. I'm telling you, you guys, this is the ticket. This is the ticket right here. This is the ticket that took my business to almost $1 million in sales after the pandemic. Because when we lost everything, guess what happened? It took me 8 years to build. I lost it all. And because we had a duplication process in place, it only took a short amount of time to rebuild. And we scaled the second time we did it. It took us 8 years to build it. We lost it. And it took us 2 years to rebuild because we already had a duplication process in the works. We were already duplicated. It took us 2 years to get it back because we just implemented what we already knew that worked, what we already knew that made money, and we had a record year in sales last year. So this is your ticket to grow. This is your ticket to scale. This is your ticket to spend more time with your kids. This is your ticket to make more money. Duplication is the key. All right, y'all, join me next week as we talk about marketing on social. Those of you that have been tuning in this year, last year, I'm trying to remember when it was, I got my social media certification, expert certification. So I'm going to share a little bit of that information with you next week as we talk about marketing on social and why it's so important. We've got some new things coming up. Can't wait to talk to you about that. Signing off, y'all. This is Amy with Life Redesigned, where we grow through what we go through, and I will see you next week.